The origin of this session is that over the last 2 years, all of us on this panel attended conferences where artificial intelligence has been the dominant theme of the session. But I would say many of us have found that the actual content has been purely speculative, and in some cases, possibly even disingenuous. I mean, I exaggerate only when I say some of them have AI in the title, but if you spent more time in the session, they should really be called, and now I've got your attention, let's talk about interlibrary loan. What we wanted to offer here is a session on practical activities that are actually taking place at institutions. Libraries, as trusted institutions, are uniquely positioned to adopt and support artificial intelligence initiatives on their campuses. And moreover, it's particularly interesting to interrogate how the size and mission of institutions impacts their relationship with artificial intelligence. So today, we are bringing together 3 library leaders from very different institutions. So let's have a round of introductions. So as your moderator, I am Seth Cayley, Head of Academic Publishing from the publisher Gale. Rusty, would you like to introduce yourself, your relationship with AI, and give us some context about Goldie Beacon College?
Good morning. Well, hello, everyone. It's good morning when we're recording. So my name is Rusty Mahalik. I am the library director at Goldie Beacon College in Wilmington, Delaware. We are a small school, teaching and learning school. We are an emerging Hispanic institution. We serve mainly first-generation students, and we firmly believe in providing technology to students in an equitable way, in an inclusive manner. And that's where we come in with our AI tools. We want to make sure that students have a backbone of knowledge that they can bring when they go and try to get a job in the workforce.
Great. And Michael, talk to us about your sort of role at Creighton University.
Right, thank you. So I'm the university librarian at Creighton University, which is based in Omaha, Nebraska, and we have a branch campus in Phoenix, Arizona. And previously, like a few months ago, I was the dean of the library and assistant provost for educational technology at Seattle Pacific University. So both Creighton and SPU are faith-based institutions. Creighton, a Jesuit institution, SPU, a Methodist institution, which means that that a lot of the work we do in the context is really informed by sort of distinct theological values. And we'll sort of talk more about that later, how that intersects with AI ethics. And so at each institution, I found myself at the center and being able to center a lot of conversations around AI, both within the library and how we're integrating AI into our systems and kind of practices, but also faculty development and how in my previous institution I oversaw ed tech and instructional design, and so we looked at how to help our faculty work with AI and integrate that into teaching and research. At Creighton, I don't oversee that area, but have already begun a very deep collaboration with that area because that area focuses on faculty, the library focuses on both faculty and students, as well as systems. And so, as Seth said, I found that libraries are a really uniquely situated institution to coordinate and collaborate around the integration of AI into higher ed.
Great, thank you, Michael. And Keith.
Hello, everyone. I'm Keith Webster. I'm Dean of Libraries, Director of Emerging and Integrative Media Initiatives at Carnegie Mellon University. From an AI perspective, this is a fascinating place to be at. Carnegie Mellon has a good claim to be the university where AI was founded back in the mid-1950s by researchers like Herb Simon and Alan Newell. And today we are amongst the world's most prolific institutions in terms of the volume of research being conducted into AI. We are heavily sponsored by foundations by all branches of the US government. We have many national AI research institutes and centers on campus. And this positions us really at a fascinating perspective in that We are not in the vanguard of AI at CMU, but as a library, we are here to provide whatever expertise we can to those who are leading that work. That means that faculty in the libraries are participating in major research initiatives. We are working with students who are attending our AI programs. We are ranked #1 for AI education in the US News rankings. And therefore, we really need to be on the top of our game as we engage with AI on campus, from pure foundational research through applied research, policy work, and education. And that cuts across all of the disciplines that you see at CMU, whether hardcore computer science or work in the humanities and the arts.
Great, thank you. Well, that's probably a good place to sort of start talking about those practical initiatives we promised, because all of you have mentioned in some way or other sort of your undergraduate populations. And Rusty, I wonder if perhaps we could start with you and talking about the work that you do at Goldie Beacom to support undergraduates. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Seth. We've had AI tools for a long time, and we firmly believe that building is not sustainable for us. And we believe that buying tools that students will use in the workforce is very important. So last semester, we used an AI tool, LitMaps, and we built that in to teach students how to visualize research, how the scholarship is a conversation, and that we built that into the curriculum. And really for our undergraduates, for anything to work sustainably, we need to build something into the curriculum and build the AI tools into the curriculum and as assignments. And for this semester, we're doing a really neat project with all English 175 first year students, where before school even started, we taught AI ethics, and we had an academic integrity class with the first year experienced students, and we worked with them for about half a day on just how do they use AI in their regular day life. We talked about it. We had great conversations with that, which led well into our first year English program, where we're doing using Grammarly to revise their narrative essays. We're using Scholarly to do the strong response paper, where in the strong response paper, they generate a summary of the Common Reading Program, War for Kindness by Jamil Zaki. And then they use Scholarly to create an AI-generated summary of that same chapter. And then they write a strong response paper. And finally, we're using ideogram.ai, and we licensed with them as well to do a visual project of what they believe is empathy in their life. So we basically have used all of our resources to really focus and move away from that one-shot information literacy experience to really embed ourselves into undergraduate lives of students, and so that we can show them that AI is important and how to use it ethically, how to use it responsibly, but also use it to simplify their research workflow.
That's really interesting, because I mean, you talked about buying, not building at an institution like Goldie Beacom, and I think you mentioned at least 3, if not 4, different tools that you've licensed. None of which, of course, are the headline-grabbing ones always in the day-to-day media like ChatGPT. Michael, I'm wondering if that's similar at your sort of faith-based institution, whether you've taken the buy, not build approach.
Yes, I mean, even at a relatively well-resourced R2 institution, I'm much more interested in licensing tools. That said, I would like to be a model where we have a much more sort of deeper collaborative conversation around that. I mean, I'm at the moment, we're working at putting together a suite of AI research tools that we're going to be piloting next year in our sort of instructional program. And I've been impressed with the conversations I've had with the different vendors about their concerns around certain ethical issues, and how they're accepting feedback on that and designing or redesigning their models so that they do address some of the ethical concerns that have been brought up as they implement these systems at their institutions. But I would appreciate a model where we actually have much more deeper collaboration, can think about how can we, from our perspective as librarians, especially instructional librarians who are working with students and sort of seeing the kind of issues they're struggling with, or how these systems are helping or sort of hindering their ability to do research. If we could bring that back to vendors and have a deeper conversation and about how these systems could be refined, so they are not just simply replacing work, but actually helping us improve how we do research. But yes, the short answer is, yeah, I'm very interested. I'm very interested and willing to sort of pay for better systems that we could develop on our own.
Great, and hopefully we'll have time during this discussion to talk about those questions of licensing later on in our conversation. Keith, I think there's a good segue here, because I suspect at an R1 university that has a claim to sort of inventing the field of AI, you probably are more on the build side of things. Perhaps tell us about sort of what Carnegie Mellon's doing with infrastructure there, both for supporting undergraduates, but perhaps for the university community more widely.
Sure, maybe I'll begin by building upon what my colleagues have said already, and then I'll pivot to say a little bit about our work in automated AI science. But we very much, in terms of general consumption of generative AI, are largely on the buy, not build side. Okay. We provide students with access to tools like Copilot and Google Gemini, and there are pathways into other household name applications. There are clearly things being built on campus that are available to sample groups by way of testing and development. But I think as I take this perspective into the world of AI literacy, I do see it in a couple of folds. The first is ensuring that our colleagues in the libraries are on top of the field. And my broad sense is that as our operations become more digital, more autonomous, then it's important that we all have the ambition and the ability to use technology for better outcomes. And for people in roles like those of us on this call, we have a clear responsibility both to recognize and then to reward and encourage advanced levels of digital dexterity activities. We want to develop the skills and the literacy of our team. And we've done that through a number of opportunities. We have retreats, usually during summer vacations and fall and spring breaks, where we're able to close the libraries for a day and we engage everyone in hands-on experience. In the fall break last year, we had people using their generative AI tool of choice to plan holiday menus, these sorts of things. Very low stakes, entertaining ways of building fluency and skills. We give everyone an annual PD fund, but we are topping that up to cover additional costs for anyone who attends AI-specific training. We have a lot of hands-on opportunities through that as well. And our faculty are encouraged to attend at least one AI conference in the fields that they are working with. So our engineering librarians are encouraged to attend engineering AI conferences. And then in terms of our support for the campus community, one of my associate deans, Nikki Agate, recently received an IMLS grant to develop a project called POEM, Project on Open and Evolving Meta-Literacies to improve student literacy in AI. We've hosted AI literacy hackathons. We brought in librarians from 17 different institutions to an event on campus to develop their skills. And one of my faculty, Emma Slayton, has launched an AI community of practice with now more than 1,000 people from all 50 states and many countries around the world coming together to explore AI as it impacts academic libraries. And I think they have 10 events planned before the end of the year. But to the infrastructure side, perhaps our best known example has been the evolution of our AI automated science laboratory, commonly known as the Cloud Lab. And if you dig around on YouTube, you'll find presentations that I and others have given about the development of this facility. It's been constructed about a mile from campus and provides remote access to a full suite of experimental apparatus. And in this model, researchers don't go near the lab bench. They create their experiments using an online lab notebook. The work is conveyed in the cloud to the laboratory, where a combination of robots and technicians run the experimental work, and the data is then returned for analysis by the researcher using a variety of AI tools. And then, of course, they're using AI to analyze and synthesize the data. And it really is taking this notion of automated science, what is being seen as the next big quest, to the forefront of the campus environment. So if you dig around for YouTube videos from CNI or a simple Google search, you'll find much more than I can cover in these brief remarks.
Well, you know, what interested me about your response there was, you know, when I asked about infrastructure, you know, I think everyone's sort of go-to sort of association is with something like the Cloud Lab, a sort of a big campus-wide initiative. But I appreciated you actually talked about sort of some of the systems and events and sort of abstract infrastructure you put in to help sort of educate people on campus. And I'm just wondering with our other panelists, you know, who maybe don't have access to Carnegie Mellon's resources, but do have, you know, innovative ways of thinking, what sort of events or sort of processes have you put in place to help your communities? Perhaps Michael, maybe you have anything you'd like to sort of add to that?
Sure. Yeah, and I also appreciate Keith's focus on human infrastructure because this is sort of fundamentally, you know, where I think we have to start. And so I've done a lot of things similar to what Keith has done in terms of incentivizing, you know, professional development, you know, sort of pulling together task forces with interested people, you know, who are really trying to figure out how to really continue a process that, as Keith was saying, you know, we've really been on this digital transformation trajectory for a while now, digitization of resources and services and platforms. And so AI builds on that, and it's different and it's more complicated, and there's certainly a lot we can do to support you know, our people in terms of developing their own competencies and comfort with it. But that's a model that we've done both inside the library, but then also invited you know, faculty to participate in that too, as we learn together, and even with the students. You know, one of the interesting things about this is really the opportunity for those who are farther along within libraries or others across campus, you know, our faculty colleagues across campus can actually model how to engage with this technology, and we can learn from them, and our students can learn from watching us as we do that. So I want to echo that focus on our human infrastructure and really developing our people. And then thinking about how we can help them develop skills, but also develop skills sort of in real time as they're teaching, you know, as they're sort of experimenting with these tools along with students and saying, you know, hey, this is how I'm approaching this. This is how I'm analyzing this and critiquing this. These are the considerations I'm bringing to this process.
Right. Thank you. And Rusty, this sort of idea of human infrastructure, how does that resonate with you at Goldie Beacon?
I think human infrastructure for AI is key. I think lowering the fear threshold is important, and to integrate AI into the curriculum, to use it in your everyday job, to do your tasks, to do anything. We've done professional development for faculty, but most importantly for us, for our interns and our staff at the library, we've given each one of the staff a project that they sort of a kind of experiential learning type project where they can really dive deep into an AI project and get more hands-on experience with AI. Because I think that once you start getting into it, then it makes life a lot, it just makes the whole thing a lot less scary. And I think once you get past that fear, I think people kind of do engage with it. We had a faculty member recently, after one of the instructions or sessions, they listened to what we had to share, the librarians had to share, and she's like, well, I just can't see me ever using this. And I was like, well, let's try something small. Like, just do one thing that you never thought you would ever do, and that is something that would take a couple minutes off out of your day. And she did, and she's like, I think I could actually use this. And I think that same goes with some of our interns, where they really struggled with just prompts at first, and they're like, I can't see me ever using this. I prefer to write my own papers. And I'm like, well, let's work on writing good prompts, and that helped a lot with lowering that fear threshold, so that we can actually start having conversations about AI and how it can be used more efficiently and effectively.
Well, I want to sort of move us on now to something that a couple of you have already talked about, which is ethics. Because obviously AI isn't being used in a vacuum at universities. You know, many of your users are using it outside of the university and developing their own practices. Michael, I'm going to start with you because you've literally written the book, or at least one of the books on ethics and AI. Could you sort of talk about your work in this area and how it informs your sort of professional practice?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, ethics was sort of one of the ways that I sort of began to educate myself about AI, just based on sort of some disciplinary training in my educational background. And so when I first, a number of years ago, was trying to get myself more comfortable, addressing the fear, as Rusty said, getting into understanding it better. Ethics was sort of the way into that discussion, and I brought together a number of colleagues in my previous institution where we started talking about sort of ethical or even more specifically theological perspectives on AI, and we did a research project, and there was a publication that came out of that. And so, but then as I became, approached it beginning with ethics and then getting more into sort of the technical details, what I realized is that for institutions that have a strong value system or a particular faith tradition, that's actually how we begin to approach anything that we do. We sort of start with this ethical framework or moral framework, and then get into the talking about the ethical issues that we're all concerned about. Whether it's fairness and data design or outcomes of these models, privacy, transparency, accuracy, how this affects human agency and things like that. These are all concerns we share, but those of us sort of institutions that have kind of a tradition of values or faith commitments, we really kind of start top down. So we start with this broader ethical framework, and that was sort of how I ended up getting into a much deeper understanding of AI, beyond just ethical issues, but more technical understanding how that it could be more integrated into teaching, research, and operations. So that is whether you're approaching ethics sort of bottom up or top down or sideways or some mixture of that. You will very quickly enter into a number of interesting ethical questions about these tools, and how they're built, how they're deployed, and then our responsibilities, as users of these tools. So I found that to be a really interesting book, not just for myself, but for my colleagues and faculty and other other staff at the institutions I've worked at, because people are interested in ethics and want to talk about that. And it's a way to get into, it's one way of getting into talking about how significant these tools are.
And I'll allow you a shameless plug. The title of the book is?
Oh, you want me to?
Yeah. Sorry, I was giving you a chance. You mentioned your book. So,
yeah. So there was the publication that I did with my colleagues, looking at AI from a different set of disciplinary perspectives, as well as the perspective of faith, it's called AI Faith in the Future. And then after that, I published another book called Artificial Intelligence and the Apocalyptic Imagination. Right? I think I flipped that. It's Apocalyptic Imagination, Artificial Intelligence, Artificial Agency, and Human Hope. And don't let the apocalyptic language scare you. It's really a way of just sort of talking about revelation, sort of what AI reveals about our values, and how we can imagine sort of a better world by thinking about AI creatively.
Keith, ethics at Carnegie Mellon, I mean, obviously a key concern at any institution. How does it manifest in your?
Sure, it is a very big focus here. I think the university recognized that it could not proceed responsibly with its tech leadership in AI without understanding the ethical and social implications of this work. And therefore, we have been fortunate to secure funding from donors and through federal funding like the NSF. So we have, I think, 3 institutes and centers on campus focused on ethics and AI and socially responsible AI. Most importantly, the vast majority of students at CMU are studying AI in some shape or form, and they are required as part of that to take at least one course in the ethics of AI so that they understand the implications and dimensions of their work beyond the hard coding and system development. In the library space, again, I know that many colleagues in other universities have been able to take a leadership role on campus by the library becoming a champion of AI ethics. Of course, we take that seriously, but in the environment that I just described, we are not going to be the leader on campus in this space. But we have recently launched an open forum for AI, which is a multi-institutional federation of universities, government, industry, and philanthropy, really focused on providing expert advice on AI as it relates to research, technical prototyping, and so on. And our overarching view is that AI is here to augment human capability rather than replace it. And as we think about that work, which is being led by another of my associate deans, Saeed Chowdhury, what we have are 5 principles leading to this overarching vision for the open forum. Firstly, that AI protects democracy and the rights and freedoms of everyone, that AI should be leveraged to innovate in the public interest. We want to empower workers to thrive in an AI world. We need to improve transparency, interpretability, and accountability. And we want to support the development of international AI rules and norms. And the Open Forum was launched this summer. We just last week had a big gathering in Washington, DC, where we were able to engage more closely with federal leaders. And we see this as a natural place where those of us in libraries have the right professional training to take this work to the next level. So it's a bit of a riff on ethics, but nevertheless, it really is about the interplay between ethics and responsibility and openness and transparency.
And Rusty, ethics at Goldie Beacom, you actually sort of started talking about this in your section around undergraduates.
Yeah, we started the AI conversation through ethics. I think we have a lot of fear with our faculty with cheating and how this affects student creation. with using AI tools, especially ChatGPT and Gemini and other tools that they may not even be aware of. And so as we were developing policies for classroom, I became involved in that. And I actually wrote an article that from ethics to execution, the role of academic librarians in artificial intelligence policymaking at colleges and universities, where we can dive into the privacy and algorithmic bias and how librarians are perfectly situated to help those campus conversations. I think this it helps, like I said before, with that fear threshold. I think there's always something that stops people from doing it, and generally it's some sort of academic integrity that prevents people from using AI, especially for our faculty. And I think librarians are perfectly situated to have that conversation and at least be part of that campus conversation.
Well, we're coming up to the end of our allotted time. I think I'd like to close by asking each of you just to leave the audience with just a final thought around, success or learning points you've had with AI over the last year, and what you think you'd like others, around the world to learn from your experiences. Perhaps Keith, starting with you.
I think we need to recognize that we really are at the beginning of a fascinating journey. And we need to embark upon this with a sense of responsibility, because we don't know how this is going to play out in the long run, but take an ambitious and optimistic view of how AI might support our work. And if I think about that from the perspective of the librarian, I recognize that there are a lot of concerns about whether AI will take away our jobs. And I already talked about my sense that AI can be here to augment us. And if I think about the work of professionals, AI can help complement our traditional skill set, streamlining and optimizing our traditional ways of working. But there is, of course, a second future where increasingly capable systems and machines will take on more of the tasks that we associate with our work. And ultimately, these could substitute for our skills. I suspect that both of these futures will be realized in parallel. And I don't think we can duck the possibility that that second future will dominate, where new and more efficient ways to do our work will be identified. And I think we need to prepare for that sensibly and stop thinking about our jobs being taken away, but rather thinking about the skills and the tasks that we bring and do, and understand which of those might be replaced by technology, and view that as an opportunity to redeploy our skills and embrace technological change, not as leading to mass unemployment, but rather as one that helps us do things that we simply don't have the time or the capacity to do at the moment. So I'm feeling very optimistic at the moment.
And Rusty, do you share the optimism?
Yeah, I echo Keith that I think the optimism is there. I think that, and I couldn't really say it better than what Keith said, but I think finding something small to get you engaged in AI, and finding some task that you never really want, some mundane task that you didn't really want to do in the first place, to, especially if we're talking about the workplace, and to kind of eliminate or save time so that you can spend more time on critical thinking and spend more time in thoughtful engagement of whatever you're doing for your work, whether you are a dentist to a doctor to even a construction worker, where you can actually have conversations with people. And I found, from at least my team, that we've had more engaging conversations and have more time to have conversations because of our use of AI in our regular jobs than be fearful of it. So I think, just echoing Keith, I have optimism.
And actually, just as a small aside, I found generative AI very useful for summarizing 360-degree feedback, which is a terrible thing that corporate institutions make you do, where you get feedback about someone from 10 or 11 different people. It's actually been a very useful time-saving tool for me. So even small things like that are meaningful.
Yeah,
Michael, I'm going to give you the last word.
Okay, and I'll what I say I think will resonate with what's already been said. I mean, I do think that as we sort of try to move from a position of fear to hope and really engage with AI constructively, I think there is an incredible opportunity for us to really be reflective and responsible about how we integrate this technology into libraries. Libraries, I like to remind people, have actually been automating things for quite a long time. And I think there's a lot in our history that we can look at that shows how, over the last many number of decades, we have been pretty good at figuring out the kinds of things to automate, and then the kinds of things that we can then focus on, whether that's automating back office operations so that we can spend more time teaching and helping people use these increasingly complex systems. I think fundamentally we can recognize that the work is an important part of what it means, I think, to be a human being. It involves us in relationships with people. It involves us in sort of engaging and shaping the world and the future. And we don't want to automate everything. We want to automate the things, the certain tasks that can be done more efficiently or less important to us. But there still will be things that we will want to do, that we will want to not automate. And we will want to find those new things that we can do so that we can improve our relationships. We can improve the professional work we do and shape the world in a much more constructive way. So I am optimistic I think I am optimistic, but more fundamentally, I think I'm really hopeful about how we can engage with this technology constructively, and particularly libraries and librarians, that we are well situated to really bring a lot of our history, a lot of our professional perspectives, and commitments in terms of values to this conversation.
I think that phrase, augment the human, I think Keith used, and I think from fear to hope, those are some of my big takeaways from today. Thank you everyone for your time and attention, and thank you to our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.